Hey guys, so I guess it's the tail end of, at least here in America, the tail end of what's known as Yom Yerushalayim, Jerusalem Day. And what is Jerusalem Day? Jerusalem Day is the day that the Jewish army, the IDF, Israel's army, liberated the old city of Jerusalem, which had been in Jordanian Arab hands up until that point. And so what did we really liberate? Or what did we end up with? We liberated what today is known as the Old City. We liberated actually the Temple Mount. Then we gave the Temple Mount away. We gave it back to the Arabs. We gave it specifically to the Jordanians, to the what's called the Waqf. It's like this brotherhood trust. But Baruch Hashem, we kept the Old City, the Jewish Quarter, the Rova, what's today the Kotel Plaza, the Western Wall, and today we have all these yeshivas there, all these houses of study, and people live there. Thank God. I was just recently there, and so that's what we're commemorating today, celebrating, really. It's interesting, guys. So many thoughts running through my head how to present this and what really to talk about with regards to Yom Yerushalayim. One thing is that, we took back this city, and when we took it back, we had the Temple Mount, and then we gave it back, we gave it away. But when we took it back, we were, you could see videos where the army was, talking on walkie-talkies, and officers were saying, Har Habayit Beyadenu, the Temple Mount is ours, and Temple Mount is ours. That was in 1967. That was over 57 years ago. That was 57 years ago. We captured Judea and Samaria, and we captured the old city of Jerusalem. It's interesting, guys. When I first moved back from Israel to America, the first time, after the first run of living in Israel, and I moved back in 2013, I immediately started learning at this place in Brooklyn, learning Torah in 2014, I want to say. And I was learning with this guy, very nice guy, and he was, I guess, a little more like on the black hat kind of thing. He's part of the black hat community, Litvish kind of yeshivish community. And he and I, we used to have like very, very friendly discussions or debates about, the religious Zionist sector of Israeli society, because at that time I was very, and I still am, but like even more so at that time, I had come back from Israel. I was into the whole Rav Kook thing and, settling the land. I still am, again, I still am. It's just at that time I was like this newly minted, whatever that is, And we, he and I had some back and forths, and I was just trying to explain to him. I'm like, listen, man, your Torah is the Torah of Brooklyn, of the Galut, and this and that. And he said to me over these conversations, he said to me one thing. He said, Tzvi, I got to tell you, I would understand, because we got to a whole discussion about Yom Ha'atzmaut, Independence Day, and he was saying how it's not really, it's the state of Israel. The people who founded the state, who were against Torah, who, they were the ones instrumental in Yom Ha'atzmaut. And then he said to me, if anything, the more important holiday in Israel should be what? Yom Yerushalayim, because that's when we recaptured Jerusalem. That's the more important thing. He goes, Yom Ha'atzmaut, okay, we got a state, but the state was socialist, the state was anti-Torah, it was like, the size of a French fry, whatever it was. But when we got Yom Yerushalayim, we recaptured Jerusalem and also Judea and Samaria. It's not just Yerushalayim. It's Yom Yerushalayim plus, right? That should be the more special day. And the fact that it's not tells you everything you need to know. Meaning that's the fact that it's not commemorated by the entire government, the entire country, by the media, by everybody, tells you everything you need to know. And the irony of the whole thing is, guys, who were the ones that led the army to capture Jerusalem and Judea and Samaria? Yitzhak Rabin, whom the lefties venerate, and Moshe Dayan, who was like the big, lefty du jour, and the one that gave away, he was like supposedly an archaeology thief, and he gave away the Temple Mount to the Jordanians. Folks, that's who was leading the army. Those are the people, we got attacked, and those are the guys that did the preemptive strike, and those are the guys that led our troops, and that's who captured Jerusalem. Guys, it's interesting. There's an idea that a friend of mine, last week we had this kosher food and wine event, and we were pouring some wine from Israel, and we were talking about the state of Israel, and we were saying basically how, the fact that the seculars founded the state of Israel, it's a very actually famous idea that basically it was as if Hashem wanted to trick the Satan. So he allowed these secular people, almost these anti-Torah people, to found the modern state of Israel. So they were almost like a Trojan horse for whatever Hashem wanted to bring in to the land of Israel, which is Torah, which is, tradition, which is, people coming back to the land and, studying Torah in yeshivas, all these wonderful things, vineyards, etc., etc. And it had to happen this way. Otherwise, it would have been religious people, it would have been, the Sitracha would have just as you could see now, they would have crushed it, just like they're trying to crush it now, right? And so it seems like similarly with Yom Yerushalayim, it had to be these Moshe Dayans and Yitzhak Rabins, and it had to happen this way. Maybe because, listen, maybe it could be that we weren't ready to build a temple yet. We weren't ready to have something there. You could say, well, we could have had synagogues there, right? But folks, I don't know if you know this, there was a lot of people we could have had Christians come in and build, and no offense to Christians, there could have been churches there, God forbid. Because, now you have a lot of people saying now you have a mosque, and there's no possible way, at the very least, that you'll have anything resembling imagery or avodah zarah on that spot, right? Because I don't know if you guys remember what happened during the Roman times when they kicked us out. They put, Saturn. They worship Saturn or other things. The Greeks did, slaughtered pigs over there. The Romans worship Saturn. All kinds of horrible things happened over there after we were kicked out on Tisha B'Av, right? So maybe Hashem was like, you know what? If there's not going to be a temple there, I'm at least not going to have any tumah there, right? Any impurity there. So he allowed our cousins, so to speak, Ishmael, to be the keepers of that place. But, my friends, recently we've had a lot of success, and especially now, and not that I'm not such a fan of Ben Gvir, but Ben Gvir, who's the head of the police, has allowed many Jews, many Torah-observant Jews, to pray on the Temple Mount, to say the Shema, to say the Amidah, the actual, prayer, as set down by our sages, and that's great. But guys, honestly, I feel like if you look at the totality of the modern state of Israel at the timeline, today is probably a more important day than Yom Ha'atzmaut, if not as important. Today is when the aperture opened. Is when the aperture for the entire world, for the spirituality of the entire world opened. I don't know if you guys remember. Even if you weren't alive, you look back in history, what was happening in 1967? All these movements started, for better or worse, around the world. The Baal Tshuva movement started. Jews started coming back, to Torah, in modernity. That's what started happening, guys. So today is a very important day, not just for the Jewish people, but for the world. Interestingly enough, if you look at what's happening today, it's just a continuation of that story. Because, why? Well, now we have a situation in Gaza, and we've had this whole diplomatic situation and pauses and starting and stopping. And now we've gotten into a situation where now we're probably going to have a full-on incursion in on Hezbollah in Lebanon, right? And I told my friends today, a lot of friends we've been talking about it, and everybody's worried about it because, Hezbollah is not Hamas. Hezbollah is a real army. Hezbollah is a unit of the Iranian army. They're a Shiite force, Arab Shiite force, which is a forward operating unit of the Iranian army. But you have not only Hezbollah, people forget that you have Shiite forces in Syria and Shiite forces in Iraq. Israel has been taking care of forces in Syria, more or less, but Iraq is a different story, folks. So here we are, Yom Yerushalayim, 57 years later. We supposedly, allegedly took back Jerusalem. We have the Kotel. Jews can pray on the Temple Mount. They can say all the prayers. It took us a while to get there. The only thing we're missing is the temple. We're missing the temple. Our cousins, so to speak, they have clerics who speak inside the building. That building, the Golden Dome, and they give lectures, they give their sermons about how, we are descendants of apes and pigs from that very place. It's ironic, right? From the place where we're supposed to have our temple. And here we are, 57 years later, fighting a war that probably is going to be, hopefully, the last war, the war to decide what's going to be going forward with these guys. And it's interesting because I was talking to some friends about, a friend of mine was messaging me today about how there's people that he knows that say, yeah, it is our land and we're supposed to show them that we're strong, but at the same time we have to, the future of the Palestinians, we share a future with them in this land. And me and my friend were saying, no, we don't. What do you mean? We don't. And this is going to decide this whole situation. After all the smoke is going to clear, all dust is going to clear, like my friend is saying, we got to start taking their territory. But it's not their territory, right? It's going to decide, ultimately Hashem is going to decide. He's going to push us into a situation where if we're not going to decide to have our enemies not be among us anymore, or at the very least tell our enemies, listen, or tell people who live among us who are not us, listen guys, we have these things we have this concept called Ger Toshav. So Ger Toshav says, stranger among you, you can live with us in the same country. The only stipulation is don't murder us. And if you can't stop yourself, in Russian we say, ты не можешь сдержать себя, to hold yourself back from murdering us, you have to leave. And folks, a lot of people, you could say, well, you sound like what Rabbi Kahana was saying, and then, at the time that he was saying it, maybe it was a viable thing to do and viable thing to say, and it's not viable anymore, and we can't do that anymore. There's millions of people, there's this, there's that. Folks, this is insanity. This is absolute insanity and there's this guy, Gad Saad, speaking of Lebanon. He's a Lebanese Jew. He's a professor in Canada. He wrote a book called Suicidal Empathy. Folks, we have suicidal empathy for these people. They want us out and or dead. And you could say, well, they're participating in society. Folks, 10% of them comprise our government. We have a fifth column in the government. This has to be decided, and if we're not going to decide it, Hashem is going to decide it for us, folks. And it's not going to be pleasant the way He's going to do it. It's going to be even more unpleasant. It's going to back us into a corner, and then when we're back into a corner, then we're going to be like, okay, you know what? My friends, I was talking to a friend in Israel this week, and they told me that, they come from a family of leftists. And they told me that they used to be leftists themselves, and they told me that they have clients, whatever, they do therapy, and their clients are all in Tel Aviv leftists, or were leftists, and all these people are now waking up to the fact, you know what? And they're saying the name that they were afraid to say, that's a third rail to say, that, you only hear in certain circles under people mutter under the breath. Kahana. And it gets louder and louder. Kahana. 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 And now they're saying Kahana was right. These hard lefty people who were like, Shalom Achshav and Oslo and give this land away and let's have peace over here and we think we're going to have peace. Folks, they are realizing that the more land you give, the less peace you have. Then you don't get land for peace, you get land for piss. P-I-S-S, right? So, and now you have this. You have rapes and you have murders and you have just Baba Yar and Gehenna and Auschwitz combined, right? That's what you get. And then you have on top of that the world condemning, blaming the victim. Folks, at this point, we just got to do what we got to do. Whether it's the South, whether it's the North, whether it's Iraq, Syria. They might try to come from Jordan, for all we freaking know. They're all up in Judea and Samaria, places like Jenin, Nablus, Shechem. My friends, this began on Yom Yerushalayim. We took back our land. It was the most important day in this history of modern Israel. More important than Yom Ha'atzmaut. Dare I say, more important than Yom Ha'atzmaut. You can lump the Yom Kippur War in that as well, because in Yom Kippur we learned that, we're basically alone in this world, right? We learned that the hard way. And that's it, my friends. We have to continue. And now, I think, we still see that the Sitra Achra is fighting anything that tries to come in through the lens, not through the lens, but through the channel of Torah, or with on the wheels of Torah, right? Whether it's judicial reform, whether it's anything to do with anything Torah related. Even stuff that's not coercive, religion. We see people, there's people who fight it, even though they're a minority in the country. They're like 20% of the country, maybe, if that. My friends, I keep hearing that like 50% of the country does, the country is divided. My friends, 80% of the country is a traditional country of Israel. 80 to 85%. That leaves 20 or 15% of these people who are just like fruitcakes, okay? And I'm not even going to get into a discussion about how these people are there's like entities trying to collapse this current government during a war. But my friends, I'll tell you this. Just like at that time, Hashem pushed us into destiny. We weren't looking for this war in 1967. Hashem pushed us into destiny. We took back, again, after the dust settled, these Gnostic fruitcake Erev Rav guys found themselves in the center of Jerusalem, and they found themselves in Judea and Samaria. And since then, they've been trying to give it back, and then there's been people like myself and other people who keep building homes and getting dismantled, and building a home on the place that just got dismantled and getting dismantled again, and a third time, and a fourth time, and a fifth time, to the point where, okay, now that town that used to be dismantled is now an official Israeli town. We move on next to the next open hilltop, and to the next open hilltop. My friends, just like we did it in Judea and Samaria, now we have to do it. We're going to have to do it in Gaza. And after we're done with Gaza, we're going to have to do it, and they already had conferences about this. We're going to have to do it in what today is, the southernmost part of Lebanon. My friends, we cannot demilitarize, where people used to live, pull them out, and then keep them out and keep them in hotels. We have to bring them back to the areas they were, and then expand into South Lebanon, get Hezbollah out, and have Jews live there, my friends. Whatever we conquered, that's where Jews have to live. my friends, I'm going to end with this. Before Mashiach comes, the Gemara in Sota talks about this very situation, that it talks about how people are going to have to leave their homes on the borders of Israel and move inland, and they're not going to know where to go. They're going to be wandering around. I mean, living in hotels is effectively wandering around. You're just living in a hotel. You're not living in your house, my friends. But Hashem is going to push us into a situation, if we don't make the choices ourselves, take the decisions ourselves, and our people are going to have to come back to their homes and then some. Same thing with Gaza. We got to go back to Gaza. The people are going to build homes. The army, I don't know. Some of the army wants, some of the army doesn't care, some of the army doesn't want at all. It's going to have to be the people, my friends. It's not going to be the government. It's not going to be the top military brass. It's just going to be us. That's basically it, my friends. So we are still in the Yom Yerushalayim, the Jerusalem Day trajectory. It began 57 years ago, and now is the time to finish what we started, or finish what really Hashem started. And if we're not going to take the initiative, Hashem is going to push us into it. All right. Hag Sameach, guys. Talk to you soon.